What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Meran Podcast. Today, my guest is Phil Casabon. Right after recording episode 1, which was about Phil's 2020 season, we did another podcast separately to talk about his entire career. We talked about everything from his youth up until now. So bdog on Wild, Level 1, B&E, Tempo, The Education of Style, Let It Flow, and much, much more. Again, it was a really nice conversation, and I really learned a lot from behind the scenes of all these projects. Let's go. Mr. bdog.
We're back. What's up, Xavier?
What's up yourself?
Chilling here in the mighty goodness of the fall in VDP.
We did a podcast to talk about your latest year and everything that happened, your movie project, your 2 movie projects, and I wanted to do a separate one because you've already talked about your career on other platforms, but I wanted to still have that conversation with you because I think there's a lot of stuff to be talked about and a lot of stuff to go in deep. So let's start.
Let's do this.
So you grew up in Shawinigan, Quebec. Tell me about the upbringing of someone who grew up next to a resort.
Yeah, very fortunate. I grew up next to Vallée du Parc, which was owned at the time by my grandfather and his 2 brothers. So basically they created a sort of little atmosphere with all the houses being inspired by Switzerland style chalet. And if you were agreeing on building yourself here, you had to have a Swiss chalet style. That was the thing at first, like 49 years ago when it got built. And my parents were one of those people that built their house there. And I lived right next to the ski resort, and we had a little hill that was basically scattered wood that you could go through and basically land at the hill. So I was fortunate to not have to pay for my lift tickets and had a season pass when I was born, basically.
I didn't know first that your family owned it or anything related to that. Did your grandparents found the mountain? Like founded it?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. So how did that happen? Do you know the story behind it? How did they manage to buy that hill particularly, and the whole project of starting a ski resort? That's kind of special.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't know. That's something that you caught me off guard. I have to look into the history a bit more. Obviously the purpose was they loved skiing and they wanted a ski resort, and they also wanted to capitalize on this beautiful place that once was called La Vallée de Cendrillon in those years. And the
Cinderella Valley.
And soon enough it got switched off to VDP, Vallée du Parc. And I don't know why my grandfather and his brothers first were motivated to do so. Probably a love for skiing and outdoors activities.
Because it's right next to Shawinigan, which is kind of a medium-sized city. Well, small city, but enough people to make a living with a resort.
Right.
And it's kind of the only one in the area, right?
At that time, it wasn't. At that time, there was Saint-Mathieu du Parc, which is a 10-minute drive from here. And there was also Val-Mauricie, which is in the south of Shawi. And even more south, there was Mont-Carmel. So there was 4 resorts. So there was like a pretty big community of skiers and ski racing organization that would tour these 4 stations, plus La Tuque, which is more north.
What was the schedule for you? Were you like skiing on the weekend, skiing every day after school? What was it like for you?
Yeah, exactly that. My parents got me on the ski racing team, so I was ski racing in basically 2 days a week after school, and on the weekends I eventually got fed up with, but I performed and loved ski racing, but managing school and ski racing and having coaches and racing was overwhelming. Just too much following the rules, and I was a kid, had to play, and there was no time to play so much unless it was after practice. But after practice basically was I was drained of energy first off, and there was 1 hour left to do my thing, and I had school on the next day and so on. So it lasted for 5 years in the skiing competition team, which was from 6 to 11.
That's still a good time. Like to learn, well, not even the basics, but the technique. And I don't know about you, but I also did I think like you, maybe 5 or 6 years of racing, and that was basically the same thing. But I kept doing it because I loved just the training part of it, where you have a course set up and you just kind of lapping the park, but you lap the course and you do it again. But yeah, that was kind of the part that made me want to stop, was the coaching of like, okay, now you're going to work on that thing and you're going to give me your pulse and you're going to do that exercise. And I would always be like, no, I just want to have fun and lap.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which was fortunate enough because free skiing was being born while I was being bored of all that coaching, and so it gave me something easy to transit to, and came from a wealthy family, like not a super wealthy first class family, but just like parents that did not have worries about putting meals on the table, and so they afforded a pair of skis for me that Christmas, and they were twin tips because I had bought the movie The Game, the Poor Boys production movie, saw that there was this major shift in skiing, and my brother Vimoan and I were all drawn towards it. Those were all people living in VDP. So my parents linked me up.
So did you ever have a part where, before that first twin tip pair, where you'd go into parks with like racing skis?
Definitely. Yeah. Could do the 360s, and was definitely a war between snowboard and skiing at that point. So was not accepted so well in the park, although I'd come by and just like do my thing, do an air in the little half pipe that was hand shaped, and just fuck off basically, because that's what snowboarders wanted. They just really hated skiing at that point. It wasn't seen so well, and so did we. We hated snowboarders because they hated us, and it was just this stupid war going down.
Yeah, it was a weird time. Like, I guess I was a bit too young to live it. I was just witnessing it, but from the perspective of someone a bit younger, it was kind of a weird moment where I wasn't a part of it, but I would just go in with my racing skis and my racing suit and just be like, okay, I'm just going to do my thing and do a 50-50 on a box and get on. So what was that first pair of twin tips?
The Salomon 1080, the classic.
The originals.
Yeah, the yellow and black. And once I got those, my birthday, it was a birthday present. My birthday's in the summer, midsummer, so it was like a torture to not be able to ski them for that long. But I would set them on the ground, and I'd just stand on them, stood on them, and just mimic tricks that were in the game video, and just like imagine myself doing that and thinking like I'm never going to be able to do the tricks they do in the game. That was what the top was back then.
So that was like the influential movie for you?
Yeah, that's what like really sparked me to start skiing. And once I got hooked, then a lot of other movies revealed themselves, like Royalty. Royalty was the second big one, which was very style orientated and much more persona orientated. Just like gave you much more of a glimpse of how these people were, and the soundtrack was just like really up my alley. I was obviously, and still am, building myself as far as who am I, and I was figuring it out at that time, but that stuck with me. Like D'Angelo, Devil's Pie, Sister Nancy, Bam Bam, Sizzla, Words of Truth. Eric Pollard was Deltron 3030.
Yeah.
Like all songs that they're still on my playlist.
Well, we see the influence because you just named them one after the other. Like, you know it by heart.
Mm-hmm.
So you said that it seemed crazy what they were doing, and it seemed like on another level. How was the thinking for you at that point of like the perspective of being a pro skier? Was it even like a dream? Was it something out of this world of you just loved skiing? And like, did you ever think that you would get to where you got at that point?
No, I don't think it was a thought so much. Maybe a fantasy. So I guess it was a thought, but it was a fantasy just to someday be able to do what they did. I guess when it really cemented itself the timing was great. It's around Exact Science, a Playhouse movie, which must be 2005, 6. Maybe I'm off on date. 2004.
Might be a bit earlier than that.
Yeah, 4 maybe. 2004. When Deshno segment came out in that movie with the Liquid Sword song of Jizza, and I witnessed it in the church where they premiered it in Quebec City. Super big premiere. Everybody was wilding out. Alcohol, people could drink. I wasn't drinking, obviously too young. But when I saw that segment, I was like, okay, you can just like be cool on skis. Like you can do, obviously his royalty segment showed just that. But the Exact Science part with hip hop, like, spoke to me even more because at that time I was much more hip hop influenced. Now I look back and the royalty segment is like probably my favorite at this point, but at that point Exact Science just like really, I got the DVD that night because you could buy it at the premiere and watched it back to back. You could rewind the part, and that was the only segment I would watch. Other noticeable mention in that movie, like great people, but really Deshno, just like the style was on another level, the kits, everything.
After seeing that movie Exact Science, where were you at that point in terms of level? Were you already doing competitions, or did that come after?
Yeah, I might have been having my first sponsor then. It's so hard to place myself within time. My memory is drifting, but I had my first sponsor at a Bromont contest where all the notorious Quebec skier at that point were like Charles Gagné, JF Frank Raymond, Johnny Ely back then, Antoine Gagné. All the big dudes were, and I went there. I was 12 years old, and I did just did the course basically, but I was so young, and I hit the jump, but I was so young that I resonated with some sponsors that were there. Like Rozzy told me, "Yo, we are looking for a young guy. Would you be willing to be on the program?" Like Us, which was the Orage for young kids, same thing. Would you be willing to be on the program? And the dream came true. What sparked that, prior to that, I was like on a kind of a sketchy road because it was a secondary 2. I was in a class with friends that were everybody. I started to smoke weed like at 11, 12, early 12 years old, like way too young.
So secondary 2, which is like, I guess you're 13 or 14. It's like early high school.
So I was 13 coming into secondary 2, and I started to smoke weed that summer when I was 12, just turning 13. Met some people at school that were in the same class that were maybe not the best influences, and I hung out with them, and they weren't skiers, so I would hang out and just smoke weed. And at some point in the winter, around like New Year's that year, I went out and with my cousin, we bought some weed at the ski resort. Not even skiing, we were just bumming. Brought the weed back home, went and smoked it, and my uncle, which was my cousin's father, that was with me caught us smoking weed, and it shocked me so hard. Like, now I called my mother. I told her I got caught, but I wasn't smoking. It was this other dude. Like, I was just like trying to be like, I wasn't being honest. Obviously, I told her afterwards, but at that point I was like, damn, I can't like deceive her that much. She was shocked because obviously I don't have parents that are weed friendly at that point. Now with years, I've definitely made them psychedelic and weed friendlier, but at that point it was a no-go for sure. And I got caught, and I just said, I got two choices. I keep hanging out with those dudes and keep smoking weed, or I just stick to skiing. And I stuck to skiing, took that decision, and 3 weeks later got the two sponsors, and then it clicked. So I definitely probably took the good route.
Definitely. Kind of life telling you that you made the right choice.
Yeah, real blessing.
Yeah. And then when you said you'd focus on skiing, was it like the only thing you were doing? Like, were you doing other sports at that point?
I played soccer, but I didn't want to play soccer anymore because I love team sports. But at that point, I was trying so hard, and the energy within the soccer team at that age is like anybody can go into a soccer team, and not everybody was giving it the same effort. And I was always giving my 111%, just trying to be as good as possible and try to get it in and win. I like was drawn to win all the time, and a lot of people on the team weren't, and I found it hard to be with people that weren't as motivated. And that's where I branched off into an individual sport where I could be just like whatever I put in, then that's what's in. Like, I don't have to rely on this other person, and rather, like in this case, I could feed off the other person's energy and choose who were my teammates rather than be like, okay, this is who you play with, this is who you play with, which now I've obviously grown to be fine and happy to do. But at that time, it was definitely harsh.
After you got those two sponsors, there's a big gap in my mind that I want you to fill. I didn't know you when we were younger. The Phil I knew is Phil Casabon, I don't know, maybe 17, 18, riding for Orage, Armada, already kind of pro, I guess, traveling the world, who releases bdog on Wild. What happens to 13-year-old Phil to get to that point?
Kept it going, had support from my family, which, like I said, were wealthy enough to send me for a week in Whistler, tutored by my sister, who was also like pursuing the freeski dream. And we went to SMS camp, and really like at SMS camp got more acquainted with Alexis Godbout and just made friends with him, and he was pursuing that too. So, and over there I won the weekly contest of like my category. So my parents, obviously you need some accomplishments to make it like noticeable.
To validate the process, kind of.
Exact. And so that happened, a summer in Whistler, and then did the skiing thing again the next winter. And by 14 years old, I got like my first check. I won my first contest, which gave me a bunch of loot, like $3,000 at a rail jam, which was insane. I did my classic rail jam trick, 2 on, switch up, 2 out. That was the thing that got me the gold, and that was insane. Kept going, went to VT Open, got third at VT Open, and did another event in Quebec. I forget which it was, but that year I ended up stacking like a lot of money for a 14-year-old, maybe like 10, 12 grand, like staying at my parents' and not paying food, not paying rent, not paying anything, but like basically now I'm paying for my skis because I'm winning money. So that's all I have to pay for basically at that point. So I keep on doing the same thing. Start filming. My first film is filmed by my brother. He's filming us, the crew, and it's a no-name film. It's just a movie.
Is that online?
No, it's just it was just a movie for us. I don't think we ever released it, but it's probably on my brother's hard drive.
I'd be curious to see that.
But the footage is online for my part, and it's Phil Casabon or bdog, 12 years old, something, or 13. Afterwards, I met through the events the crew of New Way Production, which was directed, and filmer Charles Burrows was the main dude. There was JP Caron, Jdesica, David Beaulieu, Justin Maillard, Samuel Robichaud, all these homies, and obviously influenced prior by Advanced Vision, which were filmed by Fred Larue and LP Sans Façon, and had like my favorite skiers from Quebec, JF Houle, Charles Gagné, Dom Légaré, like Phil Warren, Guillaume Saint-Cyr. All these guys were in the movie Union that really made a impact on me. But I got with the smaller crew, the New Way Production, which were like the like lesser known and lesser good guys, if you will, and got to film with those dudes. Made 2 segments with New Way Productions, and then I filmed with Mystic Land that year when I was 17. Stacked all my clips, and NSF with JF Boutin took those clips, and that's what I used at 17 years old in 2007 to make bdog Gone Wild. It was a collage from these 2-3 segments all over the place, and just made something with my favorite rap album. I was vibing to Redman at that point. Red Gone Wild had just came out that same year, so I just said, bdog Gone Wild, easy. I'll just name it the album with the title, cop the soundtrack, and just like call it what it was.
And that's an edit that changed your whole career. I remember when you dropped that edit on New Schoolers, it was like top rated for a month, 2 months, whatever. And after that, bdog was born, the persona. And as we were talking about before the podcast, there was something kind of visionary in that sense, where at that point in time, the strategy was to film with a company, to drop a segment, and then that was it. They sell the DVD or whatever. And you had the vision that people would start doing maybe 7-8 years later, which is, hey, give me all of that so I can make my own cut of it and release it online. And that was a big win.
Yeah, absolutely. It was me being bored in the summer, basically not skiing, and just having a brother that was familiar with the editing software. At that point, Adobe, still Adobe, but switched through Final Cut as well. One thing that I jumped over that changed the game for me was JP Auclair, Yannick B. That Yannick B grew up at the same ski resort where I grew up. D-Structure would do these camps, like reoccurring camps, and they came to VDP. Yannick took notice of me. JP took notice of me. JP put me on the team, and he even went as far as inviting me and putting me on his 4-people team at a Raj Master when I was 14 years old. That changed the game for me. I got to see Tanner, Candide. I saw them all, which is the picture that you saw on the wall over there. That was JP inviting me to that event, and I was so grateful because out of anybody, like, he could have went for the win.
He didn't have a crystal ball at the time that was like, oh, Phil is going to become who he is going to become. It's a bet at that point when you're 14, 15.
Fully. It's like, give a chance to someone, and that is really inspiring to do. And JP put me on huge with that. Got me on Armada as the younger dude. And that was all so quick. It got me pretty stressed out and anxious. And I got my first injury that year in Mammoth, just trying to outdo myself. I tried to a rail jam like in the streets of Mammoth. JF was cashing money. It was like money for tricks. And it was a down flat down rail, a flat down box, and a down flat down box. Frank Raymond was there, Tanner Rainville. JF was like doing some unbelievable shit. So was Rainville. And I was up there pretty scared, like tired. Just I've been skiing so much. And I did a 2-on that didn't go. Caught my ski, broke my shoulder, almost full on open wound. Like the bone humerus was almost sticking out. Got pins sticked in my shoulders. And that's like when I realized that the body was susceptible to real damage. And I really got shook from that first injury because I didn't put in perspective that the body could break down doing this stuff. So that made me go on a rehabilitation program, figured out what it was to rehabilitate. It sucked. And I was like, damn, I don't want to rehabilitate again. 16 years later, Phil would tell you I rehabilitated about 16 more times. And that's just what it was. But at that point, I did it. And I also made it so I could come back as strongly as possible. I gave it all. My mom at that point was like, drink a lot of milk because that's a lot of calcium and that's going to help your bones. I drank the whole, she was over buying milk because I was drinking it all. Like, now that I look back.
Drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, probably not a good thing, but I did it. And I think that the intention behind it probably made my bones stronger. So I got back. That summer I went to Whistler, and that's where I got clips for Assault, the movie. And you can see that bell in Assault, like in the segment with Kim and Alexi with the song Grits, My Life Be Like. It's the last clip. I'm crashing. That's the crash. But otherwise, that really shocked me. But then that shocked really reverberated and propelled me to create and outdo myself, because I wasn't, at that point I was finishing up with high school, basically coming to, and people were saying like, I'm gonna be an engineer, I'm gonna be a doctor. And I got up the stage and I said, I'm gonna ski. And that was it. Like, I told it to everybody, the word was out, and that's what I had to stick to. And that really set the intention.
What was your mindset when you were saying that? Was it in terms of a dream, or was it like, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, fully, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make living off from skiing.
That's sick. Tell me about, I'm curious, you mentioned JP helping you out. I've talked to Belmar, who grew up in the same mountain as you, and he told me the exact same story of JP hooking him up and like being kind of, not a father figure, but big brother helping him out. And basically Alex was sponsored with Armada, but it started out as JP giving him skis, like it wasn't through a rep or something. It was JP giving Alex skis. So I never met JP, but when you tell me those two stories, he just seems like such a genuine, nice guy. It's crazy.
Yeah, again, major love to JP for what he represented and what he did for skiing. That goes way beyond skiing, because he was much more than just the skier, and he was a loving person, and that saw potential in Belmar and myself and just put us on pedestal alongside with many people. Like, he was definitely a considerate human being that like took people and really treated them just how he wanted to be treated, with love and care. And he wasn't too egocentric. He wasn't egocentric from my perspective. I was like, if I have to be someone, I have to be like JP. I have to have that type of character. He was that mentor, and I got real fortunate because he put me on Armada. He was a door to putting me on Orage, and I got to travel a bunch with him because we were both Orage, Armada, Oakley, and I got to be with the person that had like wealth of knowledge, and I was just next to him, seeing his moves, seeing how he acted, and it just really propelled me towards the direction I wanted to do, because he was doing the movies as well. Like, he was in the movies, but he was also making his movies, like UP1, UP 1.2, like classic movies which weren't like serious and were playful movies. And that really just like inspired me.
And now it's time for a first sponsor break. Treefort Lifestyles is a company based out of Oregon. They've been involved in the ski industry since their inception in 2011 when they made their first pair of suspenders for skiing. They produce some of the nicest accessories you can find out there for your adventure activities, whether you're going skiing, hiking, or traveling. Plus, I've heard their famous suspenders are making a comeback this winter. Go check them out at treefortlifestyles.com and use code MERAN at checkout to get 15% off your order. Support companies that support skiing. Support Treefort Lifestyles. When you dropped that bdog on while edit, did you know it before dropping it that it was going to get the attention it got?
I remember the moment vividly when I pressed upload on New Schoolers. I was with a friend that wasn't a skier, and I felt like he didn't know, but I was like, all right, you ready? I'm going to do it. And I didn't expect that much attention, but I knew I did something special, like, because I spent so much time making that edit, because at that point, that was the first piece I cut. I cut one thing before, but that was the first like thing I really dedicated some time to with the editing. And once I pressed the upload, I knew that it had to make some wave, because I never had seen anything along those lines of a like mixtape edit style. And I knew I had like something.
Yeah, every ingredient was there. Looking back at it, like every shot was banger, but there was variety. There was park shots, there were urban shots, there were a bit of POW shots, I think, like some not big mountain, but some, some stuff outside of Quebec, let's say in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah. Just was fortunate to travel. At that point, Orage and Armada, the program was that they would bring me on trips, and they had the filmer, and they didn't do anything with the footage other than give it to the athlete, really, or give it to Mystic Land. It was such a blessing to have Orage at that point, because it was like, okay, we'll just bring you on this trip and we'll film you, and wherever you want this footage to go, we'll give it. That doesn't happen anymore just like that.
Yeah, and it's such a great concept, because nowadays companies want content and stuff like that, and well, that strategy is basically the best to create content. Mm-hmm. Go on travels with your team and film them and give them the liberty to do what they want afterwards.
Absolutely, yeah. It's either that or make a team movie, which is a very good. Or I mean, there's not just two routes. There's endless amounts. But I think making a team movie or giving the freedom to your athlete is two of the very good routes to take.
After that edit dropped, which was in the summertime, like it was in a season, right? It was.
Yeah, it's summer.
Yeah. Did you notice anything that changed? Well, did anything change with your sponsor at that point?
Sponsor wise, no. I kept the same sponsors, but I got hit up by Mike Hornbeck, and I was looking up to Mike Hornbeck, saw what he did in Turbo and another ski flick, and the biggest thing that happened from it was Frito Cody hit me up, and Frito told me like, yo, I really think you have a style of your own, and I think you should film with us. I had shot with him on one spot with JF on a small downrail, but nothing official. But this like really cemented like the fact that I was gonna be in level 1, and that was the dream.
So at that point, you wanted to be a pro skier. What was a pro skier for you? Like, what was your aspirations? Because later on in your career, there's two major options, which is doing films or doing competitions, and then you had to choose between one of the two. What was it one of your goals? Did you want to do both? Did you want to do one or the other?
Yeah, it was both. At that point, since it was possible, and it still is, for Henrik, let's say, to do both, but otherwise it's not really possible for many people to do well in contests and on the filming plateau. But at that point, it was, you had to do both really to have a career, because you had to be seen, because there wasn't no media platform that are as large as this. Obviously, Facebook was starting to come along at that point, starting to get pretty big. So that was a big facet. But otherwise, like, you'd see videos on New Schoolers, and that was pretty much it. That was the big platform. So it wasn't an option to be just like a film skier. But that's where my heart was, obviously. But I had to do contests, and X Games was definitely a goal of mine to reach and to partake in, which happened in 2009, just after the first year I shot with level 1. No. It was the same year I shot with level 1.
Because both of those directions, you progressed in both aspects, like in parallel.
Yep.
You got to the big stage, let's say X Games or the world stage competitions, at the same time as you started filming with level 1. Like, it was really at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was special energy at that point, and that was like around 19, 20 years old, youthful and just hungry, and still staying at my parents', no responsibility whatsoever that are serious other than skiing, really. So it was easy to focus on just be good at skiing and ski all the time, and that's it. And my body was really healthy, still healthy. Also, it wasn't as specialized as it is today. It's not like you have these dudes that are slopestyle guys.
Yeah, they present themselves as a slopestyle skier, right, or a half-pipe skier.
Or like urban skiers. It was just like everybody did a bit of everything. So that lasts for a few years where I can do the X Games, film it with level 1. So I do refresh, and then I film a segment on iTrip. And obviously through all that, I've met with Henrik when I was 17 at Lax, and we connected, bonded together, and got to see each other again next fall at Les Diablerets. Fully random. I got brought from an event at Les Arcs, French Mountain, that was hosting a rail jam. Met Mick Deschenaux. He was like, yo, I'm going to Les Diablerets to ski. That's where I ski at this time of year, around September, October. I jump on. I'm like, I just met Mikkel, and he's bringing me somewhere. Meet Henrik. We end up being in the same room. He's listening to Cameron, Joel, Santana, all that stuff. I'm loving it. I show him my repertoire, hip-hop. We both vibe on hip-hop. We start filming each other, vibing hard. And then that's exactly when I wanted to make a web series, but I didn't see it as a web series. I just wanted to produce something with another person, because I love Meth and Red and the energy and Blackout, the movie, and just the Meth and Red show. I love how they both associated. Ultimately, my bigger goal was to have a Wu-Tang skiing Killer Bees, like on the Swarm, 9 people, but that was difficult to do, to have 9 people in a group at the same time and do the thing, because it was all scattered all over the place. But Henrik and I, it worked great. Henrik was like amongst my first pick. It was either Henrik or Paul Bergeron, but life took its normal route and put me with Henrik, which was a real blessing, because we kicked it off and we started the B&E at that point, like not officially, but.
So you talk a lot about Wu-Tang, and I hope they pay you royalties, because you probably made like, I don't know how many thousand kids start listening to Wu-Tang. How did that come about, that love for that group?
From my brother. My older brother would listen to hip hop, And on the computer on iTunes, there was like songs from You God, songs from Method Man, songs from GZA, songs from RZA, songs from Master Killa, and then the Wu-Tang, all the other members I haven't named as well, and DMX as well, which was a big one outside of the Wu, but which was a huge influence of hip hop. But I would listen to all these dudes like, and I didn't connect the dots for a while that all these dudes were part of the Wu-Tang. I was like, Wu-Tang, that's a guy. I'm like 10 years old. So that started there where I loved Bruce Lee movies, like Enter the Dragon. I watched that again and again, like back in the day. Like that was my shit, really. Like the Kung Fu flicks I loved. And when I heard the samples on the Wu-Tang music, I was finding myself again even more, and I love the vibe of the hip hop. So when Mikhail's segment, GZA, Liquid Swords, Wu-Tang and skiing, like GZA and skiing, I was just like sold. And they just have a repertoire of music and also a bond that ultimately you don't see anywhere else. Like you can't name a group of 9 dudes that do the same thing. They all are MCs. RZA's making the beat, sure, but they all do the same thing. It's like a group of nine guitarists. You're not going to see that. You're going to see a drummer, a guitar dude, and a singer, and a saxophonist and whatnot. But 9 guys that could stay together and make albums and tour. That was really special. And I always admired that and was drawn towards trying to create that sort of system with friends that we could all move as one unit and just make skiing look cool and also move whatever it was, merchandise.
Yeah. Well, there's something cool of teamwork. It seems more fun on my side as a filmer to film with a big group instead of just being one skier, because you have the whole friend vibe going on and you're not alone in your struggle. So there's that fun side of like doing ski movies in a group and everything, but there's also the fact of reaching more people as a group. Like let's say with the B&E with you and Henrik, there was something of appealing to more people. There's something in French we say l'union fait la force. You know, like I don't know, it doesn't translate well, but you know, teaming up makes something greater, you know.
Yeah, that Haitian slogan. It's a slogan for the Haiti, the country.
What I just said?
Yeah, L'Union fait la force. That's on their flag.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. And now it's time for a second sponsor break. Axis Board Shop is a ski and snowboard shop based out of Saint-Sauveur, Quebec, Canada. They've been in business since 2002 and have supported skiing since day one. From sponsoring numerous athletes to putting on competitions to helping out movie productions, they've done it all. Axis is the core board shop, and they've got everything that you might need this season. Check them out at axisboutique.com or go check out their shop in Saint-Sauveur. Support companies that support skiing. Support Axis Board Shop. So, before the B&E, you filmed with Level 1 for 2 years?
Yeah.
2 full segments?
Yeah, exactly.
Looking back on your career that has spanned, more than 15 years, let's say? 2 years is not a lot, but it seems that you're kind of associated with Level 1, like you really made a stamp of these 2 years were 2 years that marked the skiing world.
It was pivotal moments in skiing, and also the crew in Level 1 was all time. It was a really golden era, like with Wallish coming out, Delorme, Hornbeck, Henrik, Ahmet, Wiley Miller, Liam, Rainville. There was so many people all together uniting and Brogan, like so many styles, various styles from various places. And it was a pivotal era, and I was fortunate to be at a strong moment in my career at that point to make a lasting impact and have all my time dedicated to it. The second year when I filmed with them, I got hurt for a month, quickly rehabbed and got back on, and that's when I filmed the iTrip segment, did the little skit with my brother in Montreal with the intro, Red Man Smash Something, the puppet being born into life, Igor. when I came to the premiere, they didn't want to show me the segment, but like we have been discussing, I'm so hands-on everything. For that refresh segment, I went to Denver and I was in the studio with them. I chose the song. I knew what shots would come after, I was there. And for the iTrip segment, they didn't let me see. They were like, wait till the premiere, you're going to be stoked. And I'm so meticulous with my shit. At the premiere, when it dropped and they took off the curse words, which is like, if you want that, that's it. It's like, and yet all the chorus of the Smash Something song was gone away. And I was like, no, they didn't do that on me. They took away all the swear words. And that's like the chorus. The chorus is hype and it's all swear.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing that for hip hop songs, it would, like, I remember with Eminem songs, it would do that a lot when they would play the video clip and Eminem would swear every 2 words. So then it wasn't even listenable when you would hear it. Censoring songs like that, it just butchers it.
Exactly. So that came as a bad surprise. And plus I was with Henrik in that segment and they didn't put one of his great shots, a switched up 9. And I was like, wait a minute, this is not like what I signed up for. And obviously now looking back, I was way too harsh on them. And I would have loved to keep filming with Level 1 because their quality of content, I don't think I had anything as quality, although with Brady it's been a blessing. But those dudes really put in the work, pre-production, in production, and post-production. Those guys are real professional and love working with them as well. But that threw me off. And at that point, Eric Iberg and Tanner approached Henrik and I at the festival in Annecy, which was IF3 back then. They had in Annecy in France. And they told us, then we were holding on to Muddy Winter, like one of our edit that would make basically the best B&E edit in my mind that we've ever done in regarding like relative to time. That's where we put the most effort in. And Iberg and Tanner approaches us and we're like, we're starting Inspired Media. What about you put a logo on your next edit? And I was like, okay, we're going all in. We're going B&E.
At that point, it had been a year since you started the B&E. So you had a full year of hype and like getting things together. And as you said, Muddy Winter was probably going to be one of the biggest episodes you put out. You're skiing at Hood and then in New Zealand, right?
Exactly.
And like one of the most banger park edits ever.
Mm-hmm. So we had that, and I knew that we didn't need Level 1 to make cool content. So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to move forward. Obviously, with Henrik approval, we're going to move forward with just going as B&E and just make a season under Inspired, only B&E.
Was there any concerns at that point in the business side of things? For your sponsors of saying, hey, I'm going to do it on my own?
Right, but Orage was given, suppose, like $5,000 to Level 1 for me to be in their movie. And I would still pay for trips to go with Level 1 and pay for food. So I was like, just shoot me that $5,000. I'm going to pay for a filmer and we're going to make something.
But were they open to that? Were they receptive of the potential?
Yeah. Mike Nick, at that point, maybe... Yeah, Mike Nick had just jumped in as the team manager at that point, and he was all in to supporting that kind of movement.
That's sick, because I don't know if you ever experienced that in skiing, but I think it's that in any really business sphere, that it was a good time to do what you did, but you never know if the person in charge is going to be aware of that. Then you could have had someone who said, no, stick with producing movies. We like selling DVDs. And you would be like, man, like we're on the next stage now.
Yeah, could have easily been like that. And in most cases, it would have been. But fortunately, the team manager was an ex-professional skier. And so he was all into letting things slide and just like, yeah, sure, do you.
That's dope. Looking back at those 2 segments of Level 1, which one's your favorite segment?
Refresh, definitely. Yeah, because I got hurt and missed a month and a half in the winter. But Refresh just came so easily, and I did all the contests that season. I think that was the season in life where things were synchronized the best for me. Like, just like, oh, I'm here in Utah. Oh, Phil, you're here for this dew tour? Then just come on with us on this POW trip. Cool. It just like everything was put in order easily. And things were much more easy to manage at that point because I didn't have to take care of every single aspect. Now as a free skier, literally if you want to be making money and having a name for yourself, you got to be free skier, director, you got to produce, you got to be a marketing, you got to
social media influencer.
You got to do wear so many hats to run this thing, and that's what it is. And like I hire my filmers, I pay them. It's no more like, Phil, come on this trip.
Yeah.
And I'm on the trip and I'm skiing and I'm getting clips and I get the clips and I make edits. Now it's like, no, I got to decide where we go and what spots we do and who's and filming, and I'm taking care of the winch. If the winch breaks, I'm taking care of it. It's like,
yeah, you're the producer.
Yeah, it came with the age. That's just how it is. But also the state of the industry has changed.
Yeah, that was something you kind of started by starting the B&E with Henrik that maybe you didn't have in mind, because at the beginning it was only park edits, but then you brought it to another level, which required maybe some of the production value that level 1 brought, and then it was like, okay, well, that's what's behind the scenes.
Right,
like we need to do all of those stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, your refresh segment is a classic. Like there's, like you said, everything fell into place, and it's something that doesn't happen anymore. So it has a special place in history where you have, I don't know if it's half and half, but you have a good quantity of backcountry booters and urban shots. And I always love those segments because it's, I don't know, it's well-rounded. It gives you a bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's something special about those kind of segments.
Yeah, so do I. And definitely, like, looking back, I would want to see Phil be staying with level 1 and filming other years with level 1 and being on that train. But I'm more than happy with the decision I took of taking things onto my own hands. And also the experience it gives is...
Yeah, it must have taught you so much.
No price. There's no price to this experience. You have to jump in to swim, and really, like, otherwise, if you always are tutored and always have someone telling you where and what moves to make, then you're not really fully growing into what you fully can be. You have to commit and really want to learn and just like face the fact that it's not as easy, but once you get the grip on it, then get the ball rolling, then it carries momentum and rolls by himself.
Because then you got a big momentum that you're still carrying today. Because when I grew up, I really saw Tannerall as the competition guy, but really as a film fan, as someone who was doing something special with movies, of producing his own projects. Like in the 2000s, he did so many. Was he producing Dubsky 106?
Yeah, co-producing probably with Iberg.
Yeah, and then
CP.
Believe and The Massive, and he did a lot of, he did Retalak later on, but he did a lot of his own projects. And I feel like you and Henrik are that equivalent for the 2010s. Like producing quality stuff year after year. It takes a lot of dedication to do that much stuff and make it happen.
Absolutely, yeah. And that comes with... And Henrik is a big reason why I had that much drive. I always been passionate, but really being affiliated with the most passionate and the best, like, free skier, basically, like, there's none other that can quite match up with Henrik in my mind. And so I was associated with him, which gave me, like, my hardships, because being associated with someone who is regarded as the best of the best, sometimes you get overlooked and placed second, and sometimes it's like you don't get considered as much as the other person, which creates its own challenges that are very difficult to overcome at first when you've never been faced by that, when you're used to being like, yo, this dude is dope. Like, you see Phil, now it's like a sidekick role at some point, and I was like, I ain't taking this. But that fueled kind of like me wanting to when I branched out and bring me to like the X Games, like rail ski and that type of stuff, really was fueled by being like a bit put aside by the fact that I was with someone that was better skier than me. But as far as like creating and producing and the idea revolving around the B&E, I felt like I was running the show, and I was putting more time into like the concepts of the episodes and all that. So I was leaving aside my skiing skills. So I was like constantly in between like am I producing or skiing, and couldn't find really my comfortable ground at that point, even though like these episodes still stand out and are my favorite. Like Can't Wait is probably my next to Muddy Winter, one of my favorite B&E episodes, but all the thought revolving around producing and the concept of it was a bit draining towards my skiing fulfillment.
So you had a feeling at what point of being like a sidekick in the B&E?
Definitely, as far as like being treated, or maybe not in the B&E for those years. That was mostly more after, when it came to like the education of style, and really Henrik, like his
becoming the next big skier.
Yeah, his skill level, and also like his skill level and dedication was way beyond mine. And then like when my segment was shown after his, or my segment was shown before his, then I'd definitely be like, damn, this dude is killing me right now. And that definitely like forced me to, and that was my view of it.
As an outsider, I can tell you I never had that feeling. For me, like I only thought about it now because you said it. At the time, it was like the two guys, not that you were on the same level, because you weren't. It wasn't even comparable. You were just two different types of guy. But there was not a discussion in terms of talent or whatever word you want to put in. It was, if you want my 2 cents, in that movie, in The Education of Style, it looked more that for Tanner. Because you guys were both on top of your games, and I think he was maybe in a weird phase with injuries at that point. But in my mind, he stood out in that movie of being like the oddball.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like a perspective and a demon, a sort of like judgment you hold, and always your biggest critique is yourself. So it's like, and also like I had a lot of years comparison myself to Henrik, which was the absolute cream of the crop. So I was like, damn, like until like that really was valuable lessons, because it brought me to the point where I didn't compare myself anymore to anybody, and really chose to fulfill myself and be cool with what I produce, rather than be or have to be at the level that someone that I am not, so I cannot do the same thing.
It's a lot about perspective, because you're good friends with him and you ski with him a lot, whereas for most people we only see the edit and we see the final product of the two guys together. And what you were doing was not, in The Education of Style, you had your own parts in the movie, but in your B&E edits, it was a lot of back and forth between you guys. So there wasn't like, oh, there's the Phil part and the Henrik part. It was like both of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah, I was talking with Belmar, and he was telling me a thing that is similar to that, is he felt he was getting behind on the slopestyle scene from, I don't know, maybe 2015, and he kept on, and he went to the Olympics in 2018, and I was telling him, well, man, on my side, you weren't falling behind. You were still in the top level, and you won the Olympic qualifier in 2016. But in his mind, he was like, yeah, he was kind of in a bad state mentally of thinking he was out. And I find there's a big thing in that, in the mental game, like where your head's at.
Absolutely.
In terms of confidence or your self-image.
Mm-hmm. How you, the interpretation you apply will be different than your next. And obviously, like, I am starting to be less, but I was so self-centered that all I saw was like how I should be getting attention at that point. And that's like a very egotistical moment also, which is like narcissistic and something that I've learned, fortunately, to tame, having to face the fact that I'm not necessarily the best, like, and feels good to not have to be the best and just have to be yourself. And that's a big realization that comes from, and not everybody has to even have that challenge, but that was mine with Henrik, let's say. But in retrospect, that's not like what what I see most is the progression and the propelment that it gave me, because he was such a driving force, motivational, that it gave me that push to be like, yeah, he's going extra. I might as well do what Henrik's doing, because he's succeeding so much.
Pushing you to be your best self.
Exactly.
One thing I'm curious to talk to you about is, in the progression of skiing, there was a big push towards double corks and triple corks. And there was a big discussion for a while. It seems like it's died down a bit since now everybody's doing them. But at some point people were also almost assuming that you were taking a stance of like, because there was no question that you were talented enough to do them, but you weren't. So people were like, oh, okay, Phil is against them, or he doesn't want to do them. What was your thoughts around that? Because you were skiing, mostly I'm saying that because we're talking about Henrik, and he's someone who never shied away from that, really. You know, like he did the nose butter triple cork and stuff like that. How was it with him, like going on that train, let's say, and doing those tricks versus you?
I was just not ready to jump in and do them, really, because I didn't practice enough jumping. I never spent like 2 months in Colorado on big jumps. I was like always 2 weeks in Colorado. The weather was bad. I had like 2 days to hit the big jumps, and I never could practice enough. And I never either like really was into water ramps because I thought they hurt, and I never was into much of the outside of skiing doing tricks. So they were really scary to me.
So was it a thing of being comfortable on jumps?
Yeah, it was a thing of not being comfortable enough to send a double. Like at that point, I wasn't like ready. I don't think.
That's the thing also Belmont was saying. On my side, I saw him progress from being a guy from Quebec who would do switch stands, let's say, and then he was learning right side doubles. So on my side, I always thought he was, comfortable and everything, but he was telling me also, like, on his side, it was later on. He was comfortable enough to do those, but then when it came to triples, he was like, there's that little something of it's getting a bit too crazy for me.
Right. Yeah, and you are best to respect that if you want to move forward for the best interest of yourself, because if there's something that's not clicking right, obviously you're going to get scared in skiing. You're going to have to face your fears and realize that it wasn't that bad, but sometimes your instincts might tell you best, and you might avoid a pretty big injury if you're smart enough to listen to your inner self that's saying like, maybe not now. And at that point, I wasn't taking any stance against like doubles or anything. I was just like, nah, can't do them. So
wasn't your thing.
Yeah, I'm not about to land on my head to win.
Yeah, because landing a rail depends on the size of the rail, but landing on a rail is less. There's less risks.
Right, or There's big risk on rail as well. It's just as far as like the platform where you practice, like now they have like the maximize where they jump into a bag. Like if I would have came up then and I jumped into that bag, I would have sent that double and landed on my face and being like, oh, I'm gonna do it again, and now I'm gonna land it. But at that point, I was skiing mostly, and that was on me because I didn't move out to the bigger resorts out
that
west.
was the thing. You needed, for us Quebecers, it was, well, you need to go in Breck for a month and ski real jumps.
Fully, yeah.
And then just huck it and hope for the best.
Yeah, exactly. And that wasn't my field. I don't know, I was spending too much. It was like early January or early December, all December I'm filming urban. Early January I'm filming urban. There's maybe a do tour throughout that I'm skiing jumps and just like haven't jumped in
doing
6
what
months.
you know.
Yeah, doing what I learned and maybe learning something new. And then there's X Games. And then like, okay, I'm not going to learn a trick here at this, like, I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable to learn that trick on jumps that I was learning speed every day and just getting comfortable with. So I just lacked practice as far as like air awareness.
Yeah, from what you're telling me, it seems like the time constraint, where it's like you're competing, and then when you're not competing, well, you have better things to do than hike a jump and learn. That wasn't your priority.
Exactly, just a priority factor.
And then that leads us into something we skipped kind of a bit, because you competed for a while,
right?
In X Games and Do Tour and all of that. What memory do you keep of that 5 years maybe that you were like really competing in X Games and everything?
It was good. I love the competition scene during the times that I did it, and actually like have some regrets of not like doing certain moves and certain tricks at certain moments and having doubts, but that's what you learn from, right? It's just like mistakes, and then feel bad about your mistakes, learn from it. And so I'm fortunate that I did make those mistakes and that I didn't like win everything and just am in the same place that I was like 10 years ago. That was a good time. Partaking to X Games was a dream, and I got 5th on my first invitation and then kept doing the thing. That second year I did X Games, thought I was going to get the 3rd, got 4th, was questionable, and then the coaches and the Olympic rings started to appear, and now at the top I was no longer by myself listening to Redman. I was next to a coach and I had to listen like, so take me through your run, Phil. And that year when that happened, I went to shit. Like literally.
That turned you off.
I didn't qualify at Do Tour. I crashed bad at X Games. I fully like lost the mojo. Like my cloth was not the same, and it set me in a different direction. I had to take a different stance, a different approach, because I was not fit for that anymore. Like I realized that something was just not right.
I'm curious, when you talk about mistakes and stuff that you wanted to do that you didn't do you have some examples of some runs or some tricks that you had in mind that you wanted to do?
Yeah, suppose the first year of X Games, I had a solid run, and I think I could win. And my father was even reinforcing that. Like he was like, I think you got it, and you could be on the podium. You just have to jump on the transfer. And on my 3rd run, is
that the year TJ won?
Yeah.
With the transfer?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I had to do the transfer, and I was scared as hell to do my right side spin on that transfer. And right before the transfer, jump on the cannon box, I do the cork 9 blunt on the cannon box, and I was thinking about the transfer, and I just didn't do the jump. I just said, fuck it. I was too scared.
Of played it safe.
I mean, not even. I just like stopped my run. I like landed a cork 9 and just braked and went on the side of the jump, because I was focusing too hard on the transfer, and I had even forgotten about that jump, and I was so scared about doing that transfer jump. But really, I'm sure it would have been...
Kind of froze you?
Yeah, it fully froze me. I got shook, and I didn't do it. And that was like something that I beat myself up a bit about, because I was like, damn, I could have really... And it wasn't like a year that I was far off. Like, I got fifth with a run that wasn't my best run, and like the podium was really accessible. And at that point, I thought a podium at X Games will change my life, which it really doesn't, in a long scheme. But
yeah, in a long career like you did, but in the short term, it might do a bit
for sure.
But what was your plan on the gap?
It was to do my right side 7
going
reverse mute.
From the right jump to the left landing.
Yep. Yep, exactly.
And what'd you do in the run you landed? Just
right 7 without the transfer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right 7 or right 9?
Right 7 at that point. Yeah.
Into cork 9 maybe? Cork.
I wonder what I did on the last jump.
Might have been right 9 to switch 10, something like that.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice to hear those inputs into the runs, because a lot of times X Games was a weird thing to watch of not having insight. It was just, one run after the others, and they would not show a run. Like, let's say you would have your run, meanwhile they were playing advertisement. So as a viewer, it was really weird to really get the full gist of what was going on,
Fully. Yeah, and that's what happened to me that first year. Like, my run I got fifth with never got aired and is nowhere because it got a commercial over.
That's such a weird thing.
Yeah, it was like kind of a shattering, because at that point, like, I'm this young dude and I'm at X Games, and I can't see my run. My run's nowhere. No one saw my run.
That's weird. It's like you wouldn't see that in football. Like, we didn't see the third quarter. Why? Well, we played some ads.
Right.
It's like you would never think that.
But that goes with their priority. Like, Quebec Canadian, sure, put the commercial during this guy.
I want to ask you about that, because as someone from Quebec, I've always felt like there was something a bit like, I don't know what there was, but it seems like because I've also seen that happen with Bellemare, where he was in X Games and whoop, here's an ad. Or it seems like there was something about us where not considered as much as other people, or like kind of those odd kids in the corner where they're not Europeans, they're from America, but they're not Americans, and Did you ever have, because you had a chance that not a lot of Quebecers have, where the whole world embraced you, like people from everywhere love you, and you managed to make a name for yourself. But there's a lot of people where I feel like there's a limitation because they're not necessarily fluent in English, and Quebec's a small market, and they have a hard time of like getting attention out of Quebec.
Definitely, and that goes with personality and putting yourself out there very much. So it's like with Alki, who is much more introvert. I'm pretty introvert as well, but I'm a little more extrovert, and put myself out with content and showed a bit more personality. And like for my man Frank Bourgeois, like he barely got, I don't think he's got even 10,000 followers on Instagram, and dude's got 3 gold medals and a silver at X Games, dominated the real snow thing, but he's not necessarily trying to put himself out there. He's not like, you see Henrik at the bottom of his runs, and he's like, woo, tangs for the children. And it's like, yeah, people want that kind of show. And it depends on your persona. Like, are you going to be that dude? You don't have to be. And it's cool if you're not. But if you are, then the X Games are definitely going to put you on that pedestal, because
they're putting on a show.
Yeah, exactly. Like Charles Gagné was winning because he was the best, but he definitely never got really like praised or known because he was so humble and just low key that.
Yeah, people would say that he was, but I think that's really in a hardcore skier kind of realm. Like he didn't have that mainstream appeal, let's say, as Simon Dumont had, or
Exactly.
but then also you could say there's multiple factors going into that, but yeah, I get what you're saying. So once the Olympic got around, you said a coach was a big no-no for you, and like having someone tell you it. That whole thing started in 2011. First Olympics was in 2014 with slopestyle for you. When you got on the national team for a while.
Yep. 2 years.
How long did it take you to say, oh yeah?
A year and a half. I reaped the benefits off of them. They were, I mean, the advantages of being on the Canadian team, probably Alki told you, but there was nothing like it. They would bring you, and it was like with the Orage days, but it was a Canadian team. All I had to do was but they had physiotherapists, they had all these professionals taking care of you, free tickets all over Canada, trip to Mammoth, a free trip to New Zealand. Like, you're kidding me? I'm jumping on. But
so you're at a point where were you kind of weighing the positive and negative and saying, oh, I don't like competing, but these are some great conditions? Or in 2011, were you thinking, okay, I'm going to try to get to the Olympics? Or did you already know you weren't down?
No, I wasn't going. I was just, and basically, like, those trips were all before the contest season. So the trip to New Zealand, suppose I just got on the team, we take a trip to New Zealand, shit's fucking epic. Coaches are filming me, I'm doing my thing, taking a trip to Mammoth, shit's epic. Then I go to Do Tour, and that's when, like, I'm on top and the coach is next to me. And at that point, I wasn't strong enough to tell the coach, like, give me my space. I just need space.
Because then again, you knew the coach, right?
Yeah, Tobin. I mean, Cusson I knew, but Tobin not so much, a bit, but definitely was acquainted to him with these 2 trips. And then X Games, I had a bad crash, just like slipped totally. Hadn't practiced, hadn't jumped, just got into it like with 0 practice. And afterwards, I was filming for the Education of Style, took a trip to Whistler. The Canadian team was there. They were like, Phil, we're doing this airbag session. Are you coming? It was a powder day. I was like, no, I'm not going. And another of those events went by. Phil, another airbag sessions. Are you coming? Nah, there's powder out there. So I canceled. And then they called me and were like, Phil, we're not going to be able to keep going with this team. And that's something that I really subconsciously wanted, because I didn't fit with the team, but I wasn't like going to tell them, oh, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah. So it was like, are you in or are you out kind of talk?
Yeah, in my memory, it was more like, we can't keep going with you, Phil. Like, just like, you're out.
Okay.
And I was more than happy. At that point, I was stuck in between Mammoth and Mount Hood. Our van broke, and a special piece in the van broke, and we had to make it ship over there. And we were 3 days in this place we call Alcatraz, but it was Altaraz, and we were just stuck there, Henrik Iberg and I, trying to figure out what we do. I mean, we were doing nothing. We had to wait for the van. And then I got the call. I was like, cool. I'm just focused on this Education of Style for the rest of the year. Then perfect, because I had missed out on some valuable days because I had gotten hurt that year.
Was it freeing for you?
Yeah, definitely. It felt really good to have that decision taken for me, but that was something that I was really feeling.
Because you always seemed like someone who knew what he wanted and not really thinking back, like looking forward. And, okay, like when you stopped filming with Level 1, you knew you wanted to do your own projects and you didn't, like, maybe now we're talking about it, we're reflecting on it, but was there a part of you where you thought about, oh, am I missing something with the Olympics, even though it wasn't a dream for a lot of people, for us it was X Games. Was there a part of you kind of thinking about it, saying, oh, am I making a good move? Should I try and get there?
No, it was pretty clear at that point that it was not meant to be for me at all. And all this, like, prior experience at contests like had just showed me that it was not for me.
So then after that, you released The Education of Style. A big thing that was different from other movies is the fact that you had long segments. In other movies, it would be more of like, let's say level 1 movies, multiple segments of 2 minutes, 2 minutes and a half. Whereas you were yourself, Tanner Hall, and Enric, so only 3 segments, but that lasted, 8 minutes each?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was like an Iberg idea, and I vouched for it. I thought it was a good idea, but I didn't think that a lot of the footage that I had showed up for an 8-minute segment. Some of the stuff was like not A+, and I was like, I always like regretted a bit that segment was that long. I would have shortened it. Ideally, in an idealistic world, I would have made that segment shorter, although there was also time for that story to be told, which was basically that segment was a story told about my year. It starts off with the Bobby Digital soundtrack, and it says it in the song itself, like with a being struggling with the good and bad within himself. And so that year I felt like a lot of inner struggle with the Canadian Association and myself, trying to really take a stand on who I was and what I was trying to pursue, and mixed in between these two opposites. And that segment with like mushrooms, I think, which was the potion that I was given, was like a psychedelic, so I can go inside myself and search for the answer. And it really, like, what we try to showcase is the roller coaster ride that a psychedelic can give a unsteady mind, a mind that is a bit feebled and just like very easily shaken. And that's what my mind felt that year. So we went in that route to showcase that. And the last song of the segment is Pit of Snakes, and the chorus to that is, we come awake and chop the heads of these snakes. It's better come awake and chop the heads of these snakes.
What's the name of the song?
It's the Pit of Snakes, the Gravediggers. Come awake and chop the...
It's better off than dying in a pit full of snakes. No.
The snake inside
Become
the cell.
awake and chop the heads of these snakes. It's better off than dying in a pit full of snakes. Mistake inside yourself, that'd be the first head you take. It's better off than dying in a pit full of snakes.
Right. So basically, that chorus meant to me that the pit of snakes basically was my metaphor, my analogy to the whole system that was being structured in skiing, like the whole FIS foundation. And that was like my rebellious note to that, was that song, that it was better to chop that head of myself, like chop that dream of wanting to be part of that foundation and maybe partake in like that great event that was going to happen, just to really please the grandfather and the father figure in my mind, rather than really what I was wanting to do. Because at that point, 22, 23 years old, and still today, like, there's often thoughts that are not necessarily mine and that come from condition and maybe even ancestors way beyond my grandfather and my father, like great grandfather that did some bullshit or that acted in some way. And that's a karmic energy that I see that can still withhold. And I think the cleanse within that segment, like, the idea was to clean myself from at least that uncertainty of like being drawn towards that dream of going to the Olympics that wasn't mine at all, and just like really chopping that down and making sure that I stuck with my guts and stuck with what I really believed in. And that was just my scream to that whole system with that song.
It's interesting to hear you talk about the whole thought that you put into it, because it's something that you do at your projects, that there's a level of depth of not only thought but like energy put into something that not a lot of people do. I think it's nice to see, because I never had your explanation and I never saw it that way, but looking at it, it makes sense. But it's nice to, there's a lot of movies out there, not ski movies, but like real fiction movies, where that's a thing where you can watch it and just enjoy it for what you see, but there's also a second layer that if someone tells you, or if you look hard enough, you'll notice. And then that's nice to have those two kind of things. Like if someone just goes in it, it's a nice part, but also with that explanation, I'll be interested to look back at it with that mindset.
Hell yeah. I've never told it to anybody before because I've never spoke about it or been asked, like, was there a founding concept behind, like, the whole, like, psychedelic movement in your segment, and why did you choose, like, to... Obviously, a lot of it was influenced by Tom Penny segment in Sorry, which was a flip movie, a skateboard movie, but Penny... Really, it was just like a few little like psychedelic effects in his segment because his new Pro Model board was mushroom, and so like they sort of ran with it. And Penny influenced me a whole lot, but I wanted to ingrain, and we all wanted to ingrain in our segments a story about our season. And for instance, like Henrik was the story to the little Patty, which was drawn from Belly, the movie that Nas featured in, and is also the intro of one of the tracks from Illmatic, Nas's album, or more so not an intro, but it's in the one of the songs. I think it's in It Ain't Hard to Tell on the Illmatic album. He talks about this scene where he meets a little kid on a bench that like is barely 13, and he's puffing a blunt and just got caught in like a shooting. And that was the idea behind Hendrix. So we all had like our little concepts that we were trying to build off of. And mine was the psychedelic realm and the struggle of just having to take a decision and being unsure. But that year I had access to like a G editor. Like that's why that segment, like there is psychedelic effects, but they're not really half-assed. Like they're really well made, if like not necessarily like top level, but up there, like expert skill level, like effects. And I was like, yeah, that's a good time to do so, because I'm not going to be able to do these effects like anytime soon by myself.
I'd be curious to see, looking back at with you telling me the concept, I would have been curious to see a version with more of the visual duality between competition and your segment. You know, that's me as a, I guess, filmmaker kind of imagining stuff. But yeah, I think there would have been a cool, like maybe alternate concept of you competing in that whole state of mind, and then the shrooms like lining you up to the filming side of like your true self. Or maybe that's a bit cheesy how I said it, but
no, but that's what we tried to showcase, but in a very nuanced and very art, like
second degree kind of, like
not a like this is what it is, just like something that is nuanced and something that you might not get. And that's why like nobody really got it, because I did it especially for myself, so I can look back like 40 years from now and be like, that's what I had in mind. That was like the moment where I sort of like took the decision to switch off from competing to strictly focus on one thing. And I struggled inwardly to do so, and doing so, presenting it on some pedestal that is very and doing so in a very abstract way.
Yeah. Well, that segment is unique, is a way to put it. There's definitely your classic skiing that is top notch, but yeah, it stands out as conceptually something like that you never did afterward.
No, right.
Yeah,
because it definitely wasn't received so well, because a lot of the shit was butchered. Like a lot of the clips were like, whoa, it was like there was no other way than to fully commit to the concept. I couldn't have like I'm just going to trip like for a moment of the segment, and at this part we can make it less. It was just like, nah, this is going to be all in like experience.
But I thought it fit the style you had done with the B&E episodes. The editing style kind of like chopping some shots halfway, or just like unconventional editing. For me, it was kind of a fit for your kind of skiing brand. That's crazy thinking about it, because you stop competing, but you still got to make sponsors happy. And the year after that, you do the Inspired Demo Tour, which was a tour where you went to multiple resorts, or like something over 30.
Yeah, 50 resorts in 66 days.
That's crazy. And you went around the most unattractive resorts ever. Like, you didn't go to Whistler and Aspen and stuff like that. You went to small hills in the Midwest and in New England. How was that received in terms of saying, hey, I'm not going to the Olympics, but I will go to that small hill in Connecticut?
I guess everybody took it fairly well because they had faith in what I was doing, fortunately. And the idea behind the whole demo tour was to make sure that we hit the most underground resorts that they're never going to think about seeing any pro, because all the pros are going where the good skiing is. So that was the whole idea, which was conceptualized by Eric Iberg, who set up the map for us. And that turned out to be one of the most memorable and highly lovable moments of my career, like traveling these places and just like skiing and skiing and skiing, regardless of the condition.
Yeah.
Kids were stoked. Sometimes there were 2, 3, 4 kids with us. That was it. Like, it was a week that you had to not go to school to come with us. But these kids would take school off. And
because that's crazy. It makes me think of JP and what you said he did for you. And you probably made a lot of kids stay, like seeing their idol in their small hill and getting to ride with them. Like, that's a lot of karma points, like making people happy.
Yeah, I thought so. And it was both ways. Like, I was getting just as much as I was given. It was so fulfilling, and the crew was top notch, like such great people. I definitely will do another demo tour before I stop, or I'll never stop skiing, but I stop doing the professional skiing lifestyle.
And plus, there's something really, I guess, noble of the point of being a pro skier is saying, oh, I used to ride the small mountain in Quebec. Now I'll get to go to the Alps, or, whatever, seeing the best. And then you're using that leverage to put attention on smaller things, which is sick.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, just the brain of Eric Iberg that really set us on a great path. And we were fortunate to have Iberg around for these years, because he really directed us in righteous ways, and that was such a great idea. We gathered all the clips from the demo tour. I went to Sweden, filmed with Henrik. We did RA a bunch, and with all that footage that we had, we went to Mount Hood. Then I broke my jaw. That was over. Spent time in Quebec. Then we edited the movie, each on our side, which was going to be Let It Flow. Made the soundtrack happen with Riga, a good friend of us that makes beats. And we made the movie Let It Flow. And through the demo tour, we had to release every day a post on our website saying what had happened, what was going down, what was next, etc. And plus, we had B&E episodes of every states we'd go at. So we were working all the time during that time, but we were saving footage for the Let It Flow movie. And so all our best clips from these little resorts were put into that. Plus, a few urban trips. Tanner came to Quebec for a week and filmed urban with me over here. Really special. And Sweden put together the movie, sold it on iTunes. I think we sold like definitely under 1,000 copies, and obviously we don't make money from that. iTunes takes a percentage, and not expecting to see any money, but definitely a weird route to take. But it was sort of like a crash test route. Like, is this where the ski movie scene is going? Is this, like, a lot of people had taken that route, but at that time, like, a lot of content was coming out for free, so it was hard to say. And that's around the time when you released your movie too, which you said was not online for free at first, right?
Yeah.
What platform did you put it on?
I wanted to put it only on digital download because I had noticed at that time that DVDs were dead.
Okay.
But I was someone who grew up on DVDs, so I was kind of skewed. I was late at the party for that. But the people I was doing the movie with were still really attached to DVDs. So I still made them. But yeah, so there were DVDs and online, like, digital downloads. I don't know. It seemed the whole iTunes thing seemed like a struggle for quantity or, you know, the attention we were getting. So it was like through a smaller website.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it seemed, looking back at it, I think I should have put it online. But then again, it's hard to say, like, when you're in the moment of, like, what's the best strategy. And we're wearing so many different hats that we're not necessarily like a strategist of, like, content, or I don't know how you would define that at that time, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that didn't necessarily, like, jump off the way we envisioned it, but it was all cool because we had a great time doing the movie, and the movie was dope. And that set us off finally for refreshment, because Henrik and I had been, like, shooting together and been together for quite a while at that point. However, like, our friendship was really good, but still, when you hang out with the same person, at some point, you're going to find aspects about him that you don't like, which reflects to be aspects of you in the end that you don't like, but you find it through another person, and that's the whole duality thing. But it felt good that next year to come into a year that we were not going to be together and we were going to make solo projects.
That's the year where you made Keynote Skier.
Yep. And that year was one of the best years I've ever had because of that refreshment of, like, not having any duty, not having to be on a demo tour, which I love to be on, but it's like, it's still, you have to be places and do stuff. Now I could just be on the program of filming.
100% dedicated to one thing.
Fully. And it came, once again, like that refresh year, everything fell into place real neat. I got with Marco Gilbert. First, he came in Shawi. We shot spots, and we were getting like 2 or 3 clips a day that were like pretty banger, and that rarely happens anymore, but like that's what was happening at that point. And then I'd go to Montreal with Marco. At that point, I had a girlfriend that was living in Montreal, so I was exploring a whole new Montreal scene of urban, and it's so full. It's endless over there. It's just the only big issue is security mostly, but
yeah,
really got away with some ill spots over there, and just like easy, just like drove places.
Yeah, you hit a lot of spots in Montreal that year.
Cool spots. But first, that all started with a mammoth trip. Mammoth trips would get me on. Like, mammoth laps are so fast that they get your skiing feet really, really ready. And I got to link with Mike Hornbeck in Minnesota after, which is the second segment of the movie called Mount Everest. This is all based off the Keynote Speaker You Got album, and those are my favorite tracks, basically. And the trip to Minnesota with Hornbeck was so refreshing because I had never done a trip where someone would take me to spots like nothing. The person we were filming with, Brandon Husak, knew every single spot in Minnesota, and he would take us there. We would just be, where's that? Oh, that's at the high school high. just like 15 minutes away. We're going there tomorrow. And we got in that mentality that we're just going to make the most out of every spot. We're not going to be like, I'm not sure I'm feeling that spot. We're showing up at a spot, we're getting a shot. That's what the mentality was. And
looking back at it, it's an insanely productive year because you've done so many stuff that I kind of forget about that year. But you have shots from Europe where you have some sick urban and kind of pow shots. You have shots from Minnesota, from Montreal. You got going that year.
Yeah, Estonia, Finland. That year was crazy.
Oh, yeah, that's also the year you had your Armada oil and water segment.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's a year where you have a lot of classic shots.
Yeah, much.
You were talking about Minnesota.
Yep.
Let's talk about that forking.
Right. That was that's definitely one of my highlights of my career.
Yeah. So for people who might not remember or haven't seen it, there's a forking rail and you do a lip-on tail press and then a lip-on and nose press on kind of different parts of the rail, but on a level which has never been seen before. Like that shot with the nose press is never been done. It's something that even the people who don't know anything about skiing see it and are like, how did he do that?
Yeah, funny thing about that is like once I got that trick, I wasn't even stoked. It was special because I was like not really satisfied. That year I was being really hard on myself and just like I wanted to make something big. I feel like maybe I felt like the education of style, like I told you earlier, being like seeing Henrik skiing being so much ahead of mine just fueled me. And also even in Let It Flow, just like being second to Henrik, I was like, damn, I really got to get mines. And that's also the last segment of this movie is a You God tune called Get Mines. And that's really how I felt. I was like, I really got to just go in and show what I can do because I have potential and I just have to get that recognition once again, which was like fueled by ego and just like that was hungry, but it made for a great ski footage.
Yeah. There's also that kind of a cannon rail, let's say, in Minnesota that level one also hit.
Right.
Where I think Will Berman does a rodeo out.
Yep.
You went to that and hit it in another way to land in the stairs.
Right.
What made you want to do that? Because it seems like a natural way to hit it is looking at it is, oh, we'll do the cannon rail. But then you hit it completely different.
Speed, we couldn't hit the cannon rail because that's
kind of requires a winch.
Definitely, unless you have like a good team to pull the bungee. But we were Hornbeck and I to pull the bungee, so we had to rely on like what our speed would allow us to do, and that seemed like the most progressive way to hit it in our minds at that point. And it worked out really well, like I wasn't expecting.
So what was your favorite trip on that year?
This Minnesota trip. Yep, that really like was an eye-opener for me and just set the bar. And really the spots over there was so fresh, and everywhere I'd go it was like so easy to get a clip.
And there's also that shot where it looks like it's at a school maybe, where you slide a rail, you hop on to another one by only pressing your nose and like lifting up your tail tips 4 feet in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, no offense to the filmer or the editor, but I don't think it does justice to how hard that is. Like I look at that as someone who skied all my life and I'm like, dude, that's so gnarly, or so, I don't know how I do that. Like there's nose presses, but that's like the ultimate nose press of you lifted your tails like to your head to get on that rail.
Right. Yeah, it took a bunch of eating the rail inside the hip and I just like ran into that rail on my ribs and hips constantly until finally I made it up there and got to slide on it. But it took a little bit, but it happened eventually quick. And that was all this segment is 7-day trip. That's like 7 days.
That's one hell of a productive trip.
Yeah, that that trip really just like set the bar. And Hornbeck and I speak about that trip a bunch, and I don't think we're ever going to have something like it quite, but maybe we will.
Yeah, because maybe a good ratio is like 1 shot per day if you're productive. Because the time of going to a spot, building the spot, maybe having a battle, and then you got to get some rest. But you had way more than a shot a day in that. Like there's, I don't know how many shots, but there's a lot.
Yeah, we were getting clipped up.
And then also in Montreal, you went back to a lot of classic places like the Olympic Stadium, but found new ways to hit it.
Right, yeah.
How was that process for you?
It's just being in a new place where I've never been and just seeing spots automatically inspired, like, and with a team that was ready to do it, and the best homies too, like V Monk and Frank GP, as far as skiers, and Marco, Vince, and Jean Spag was around, Fala, just like a really tight and solid crew that bonded everything and made everything so easy. This spot is at the Olympic Stadium, and we got there at the same time as Step Production. They were going to do a spot on the other side, and we were there on the same hour early in the morning, and they caught the attention of the security guard. So the security guard showed up, kicked them out, and then kicked us out, but I was still doing the trick, and the police showed up, and we all got a ticket. And
so stepped is the reason you got your shot?
Yeah,
because they allowed you to have time to get it.
Yeah, exactly. And also the reason why we got the ticket.
Oh, so it's positive and negative. So that whole movie is a classic, really, of yours.
Thanks, man.
Like I realized that I haven't watched it in a while, but just looking at it with you right now, there's so much stuff going on. Putting on a 18-minute movie of one person, basically, like there's some cameos in there, but it's basically solely you, is a big accomplishment of getting, because you didn't fill it with B footage, like it's all bangers and all serious stuff. And then looking back on it, it's on Newschoolers, and there's a small number of 285,000 views.
Yeah, that year we had a special way to present footage. Like Road to Zion got 400,000 views. Keynote Skier got 280,000. Iberg had found a way to make the view count like go crazy, because everything would add up, and he would put it on all these platforms, Ski Press, Ski Journal, Daily Motion, and everything, all the numbers would add up. And I don't know, definitely my biggest view count for as long as, I mean, it's 16 minutes. It's not like it's a 3-minute edit, but yeah, I don't know how that happened, but it never reoccurred. Now I'm having trouble to get like 20 or 30,000 views. Like it's really difficult now to get people to watch shit.
Yeah, well, like we were talking about earlier, I think there's something with the way content is shared right now with Instagram. Whereas at some point with Facebook, you would post your embedded YouTube video or Vimeo video, and people would share it, and the more it was shared, the more it was seen with the algorithm. And all the views would accumulate because it wasn't a Facebook video, it was an embedded YouTube video. Whereas right now, people share a lot on Instagram, but it doesn't accumulate to anything concrete in terms of numbers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, you have 100 followers that shared it, but there's nothing at the end of the day that like you can pinpoint to a sponsor, let's say, or so it's kind of hard to quantify things right now.
So much. So
after Keynote Skier, you went on to a 2-year project with Henrik.
Yeah.
So you
back on the program.
You took a year to do solo projects, and what made you want to make the move? Because I never thought of it that way, but it's really like that. You did the B&E with Henrik and Education of Style for a couple of years, then took 1 year off, but right after you came back and did a 2-year project with him.
Yeah, at that point, like our relationship wasn't the greatest. Like it wasn't either bad or anything, but we weren't like necessarily like we were definitely pulling on strings. Like we were easily getting on each other's nerves. But Iberg was definitely the bond between us that was like, yo, I'm making one more ski movies and I'm out the game. That's it after this. And Henrik and I obviously were like jumping on the opportunity. He was like, I'm going to make the illest soundtrack skiing has ever seen, which he stepped up to and accomplished. And so we jumped into that whole program, and quite quickly, Henrik blew his shoulder that year, broke his collarbone, and it sort of was up in the air. I think we were going for a 1-year project, and we said, okay, take it to 2 years. Henrik broke his collarbone again right after he just had broke it. And,
what was the injury the reason behind the 2 year?
Yeah, one of them. And also just noticing that the soundtrack wasn't going to happen in 1 year. So Henrik gets hurt again. And at that point, I'm not really focusing on filming for Be Inspired anymore because I don't have my the partner who's filming with it but I end up like in Quebec at the end of the season getting a few clips for the movie, which end up being in the Samurai Showdown part. Afterwards, I take a trip to Riggs Granson, which is really more of a like experience with my friend I've grown up with in my home resort, V-Monk. We go there with some Swedish friends and we camp out for a month and a half, shoot quite a bit, but not necessarily intended to be Inspired because Henrik's not in it. And I was thinking like, I'm just going to wait till I'm with Henrik so we can get shots for the movie actually. So it makes more sense. Summer goes by, I make an edit of the season and I'm like, should I release what I haven't filmed with Henrik? And decide not to release it. Good idea. Because that next year, early on, I blow my knee. So now it's my turn. Like in January, my knee's blown and I can't film anymore for Be Inspired. So I only had like that first year and 2 months in the winter.
So the goal was to have a movie film the both of you together, like a team effort.
Yeah.
And it ended up being kind of a weird combination of him being hurt and then you being hurt.
Exactly. We got like, which are my favorite segments of the movie, but the Mammoth segment, we were together, and the Street Knowledge segment, we were together in Chicoutimi and Shawi. And those segments really showcase, I think, that energy that we had together. But I love that movie as a whole. But really the goal was to have us together and build off each other and just like build off each other's energy to uplift the level. But regardless, it came out as a very good movie. It's just obviously it didn't go according to the scenario we hoped.
Yeah, well, you still managed to put something out that was great.
Thank you.
And then it's it's always what you had in mind versus what happened.
Exactly. Yeah. And people didn't know what we had in mind, so in the end it's
from what we saw, good. Yeah. Tell me about the whole soundtrack deal.
Iberg was in contact with this DJ from Jamaica, Walshy Fire, who is part of a bigger group that's called Major Lazer that has a big renown following. And Iberg was in contact with him through his inspired music concept. He traveled to Jamaica and made some connections there. He talked, and Iberg is just a man as far as making things happen and calling people and convincing people to get together. And like he made countless amounts of project that you could put on top of each other and you'd be like, oh my, he did all that. So the idea was to have a hip hop artist and a reggae artist on each track, and not any hip hop and reggae artists like Cormega and Sizzla, Raekwon and Kabaka Pyramid, CJ Fly and CJ Fly and Randy Valentine, like all heavy hitters nonstop, like Massacre and Cardinal Official, just like banger after banger.
A big way of doing things, I feel like, for ski movies for a while were not having the rights to a song. You take a cool rap song, you don't have the rights, you release it. Whereas you went the really legit way.
Fully. And the idea behind exclusive built soundtrack is Iberg's idea, basically, and he instilled it into us, is you have to make sure that that person never had sex to that song, or never partied to that song, or never saw the sun setting, or never finished high school to that song, but just like is experiencing this movie and this visual footage for the first time to that song. So that song, when they listen to it, brings them back directly to that footage.
Not only did you have the right for the songs, but they were made for the movie.
Exactly. Yep.
They were specific Be-inspired songs.
Yep. Built a soundtrack, Be-inspired soundtrack.
That's crazy.
Insane.
Has that ever been done before?
Iberg only did it with Idea. Idea had a exclusive soundtrack, but he didn't have the range that he had with Be-inspired. Be-inspired was just insane to have Cormega and Sizzla.
Yeah, how do you manage to convince those people to take the time? I don't know how long it takes to build a song.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was pay. Yeah, you had to pay them. One thing was like with Raekwon was 10,000 a verse. But that verse of Raekwon and Be-inspired was 10 G's. And at that point, Henrik and I was like starting to deal with CL95, which was an upcoming company that took Ralph Lauren 95 polo classic cream outfit that Raekwon was wearing and was going to remake that. And they were like, we'd like to have you guys be the snow team for that. And we were like, cool. Ended up like he frauded us and he never paid us the contract, but he did pay up the 10 grand for Raekwon to do his verse. Raekwon got his verse done, and then it was easy to get a reggae artist on a track that had Raekwon vocals because every reggae artist were like Raekwon fans. So then we had that.
It's only a matter of having someone influential and then other people want to join in.
Exactly. Then it's like, and yeah, the Iberg just made connections and is very, very adamant about speaking to people constantly and just maintaining relationships and making sure that these relationships are taken care of. So that goes far. When he was 36 at the time. When you've been doing it for 36 years, it's like you're gonna have good relationships.
That's a crazy feat in itself. Just that, not only the fact that you put out a 2-year project with Insane Skiing, but making that happen in the ski world is
special.
Yeah. Is that one of your proudest achievement? But in a sense, it's not really a skiing achievement, but it's something of reaching out outside of the ski industry, you know?
It's really special. Like, just like a ego boost brag, but I got my name on a Raekwon song. Raekwon shouting me out as like my N-word Phil. Like, he shouted me out like that. It's like, it's a pretty funny thing.
That's a bucket list thing.
Yeah, it's insane.
After Be-inspired, you produce another movie, Tempo. Then you go back again to a solo project.
Yep. Yeah, at that point, Henrik was on the road to the Pyeongchang Olympics, like fully doing the qualification and focusing on that.
You were on a different schedule.
Fully, and I just came back from a blown knee. From that blown knee, I couldn't ski, and that was my first blown knee. I didn't know how it was going to go. So I took it real slowly and steadily and just built off footage and really just like started stacking in late January and slowly started to build something that made sense and went into late June in Rick Scranton, stayed there and just had a bunch of footage to make a movie with, which I came in the summer and I was so happy because I had so much material to work with, although it wasn't my favorite stuff because I took it slightly lightly because I was coming back from a knee injury. So there's a confidence that you have to build back and such. But that year I used the iBerg approach and I went and saw my friends every week to build the soundtrack. Like every Wednesday we'd meet and we built songs. I'd build off what they did, constantly build in, found a slight concept to the whole movie, and boom, called it Tempo, and it worked out. I was really happy at that point, that was my highest achievement as far as editing wise, like how to...
It was a highly conceptual. Like I remember there was a part of kind of video game vibe.
Right,
of going from one level to another, which matched with color teams.
exactly. Yeah, so I kept it red and green and just kept those same outfits. So that year I just like rode only with red or with green. Then that was it, and
Was that
stuck
a
with it.
conscious effort
Yeah,
from the start?
yeah. Yeah, that was a fun project to make regardless of coming back from an injury. It gave me faith and focus in something.
Let's talk about your knee. That's the first blown knee you had. How did that happen?
That happened over the course of 2 times. I hurt myself in January filming for Be Inspired on Switch 9 in Utah. Just landed weird. One ski in a bomb hole, one ski outside the bomb hole, and it was not soft snow. Failed the tweak. Came back, took a month and a half break. Saw specialists. They were like, yeah, I think in a month and a half you'll be all healed. It's a slight tear. I'm like, cool. Start skiing again. Go to my local resort. Do a back 2 off a rail.
And it just popped out.
It popped. And luckily I was just here. I was here like in VDP and it popped. It could have happened like in the backcountry in Utah, which would suck much more. But I was right here and my father was there. Everybody was there. So it was easy at that level, but definitely crushing. Just like realizing, it's always a realization that that's it for this year. Like I can't film anymore. Damn, I had so much plans. Like I wanted, and once again, Tempo was sort of like built off that like energy of I wasn't done yet. And then Tempo at the end, like I learned like a dub cork 12, which I didn't intend to do, and switched up 10s, and I learned a bunch of jump tricks because like in Be Inspired I really wanted to have like my best jump shit, and it wouldn't happen because I blew my knee and I couldn't make it to the trips. So that fueled me for Tempo, and basically like it built the momentum, and just like it sort of like fueled the flame.
That's great that you use that in a productive way, let's say. And I'm curious, when you say I didn't intend to do the dub 12, what do you mean? Like not on the takeoff, I guess. More of like it wasn't planned. You didn't plan on learning the dub 12?
Right. Yeah. That day I was planning on doing it, but I never wanted to do that trick. It was not like I really want to do a dub 12 or something, but I was like, it's time for me to like flip around twice going forward and doing it like, and that was like part of the fuel from not being able to fulfill my Be Inspired full potential.
And I guess that was, as we said earlier, as someone who is in the biggest fan of jumps or didn't have the resources necessarily to get better when you were younger, you did it in Riksgränsen, which is in Sweden in the springtime when it must have been slushy. Was that like the kind of day where you were like, okay, it's now or never?
Ideal scenario for sure. Yeah. Poppy jump, sled toe, don't get tired, slushy landing. Just ideal. That's where I want to learn tricks.
And how did it go? when you...
I crashed so much.
Oh, yeah?
If you'd see the footage of me trying that trick, I ate so much shit.
Because when we see the shot, it looks like I wouldn't have been surprised if you said, oh, yeah, first try, I got it.
No, it didn't work out well for sure for a little bit. I had to figure out how to really set a double cork. Like I did the switch doubles, but that's a different thing than the forward one to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird rotations with forward double corks where some people do it more to the back, others do it more to the side, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first cork set. Yeah, you're right. Whereas a switch dub, there's kind of a classic way of doing it.
Right. Yep.
Next up on your insane list of accomplishment is the real ski contest. I think we should do a separate episodes just on that because I think there's a lot of stuff to be talked about.
Yeah, I think we could go through a lot as well on a different one.
Great. Let's stop there and we'll do another episode on that.
Until next time, Xavier.
Peace.
Peace. Farewell. Thanks, man.
Ciao.
So this is it. Episode 5 out of the way. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed talking with Phil. And I guess when we'll have some time, we'll do a third episode to talk about real ski and the 2 years he won. So big shout out to Axis Board Shop and Treefort Lifestyle for supporting the podcast. And we'll see you next time.